Okay, so let's log into SRM. This is a production site, so I have already added in the two sites here within SRM. You'll see an entry for local, which is Athena and Pandora. Obviously, before you can even get past this step, you would want to ensure that there's IP connectivity between the two virtual centers on production and DR. As far as I know, this uses port 80. So to get those two sites in there, all you need to do really is configure connection. I'll just go through it just for the sake of an example. You populate your VC credentials. As you can see, in my case, they're very secure. And then it just flies through the wizard and establishes reciprocity. Okay, so now that the two sites are listed under the sites tab, the next thing we really need to do is to set up our resource mappings. Okay, so if we go back and have a look at those VMs that we set up earlier. So this storage pool, resource pool, these are two VMs that we're going to be replicating to the DR site. As far as I know, your VMs need to be inside a resource pool if you want to use them with SRM. Okay, so what we need to do now is to set up our resource mappings. Okay, so we have set up the resource pool mappings between the two sites, folder mappings, network mappings, placeholder data store, which we'll speak about in a minute. Okay, so it's pretty standard stuff. You just kind of follow through the wizard. It's pretty self-explanatory. So when I bring this window up, it's going to list the resource pools that are available on the DR Pandora site. So in our example, SRM VMs, sorry, this one here, I'm going to map that to one called SRM VMs on the DR site. Now, they don't have to be identical names. You can set them up whichever way you want, just to keep it easy. I'm just going to do it like that. I think I'll just set up that one as well. I think I have other VMs running in that and another setup. So while we're here, let's just pop that in there. Okay. So same goes for folder mappings. SRM VMs 2, just 2, and that's the one that our VMs are actually involved with. Okay, network mappings. I set up a network for these two particular VMs. You can see their SRM VM network. In my example, there's actually no physical NICs attached to that virtual network. I just wanted to keep everything separate. You don't have to, but just in this example, I decided I would. So back to SRM and to set up the network mapping as well between the two sites. So this is the virtual network that those two VMs, protected VMs, will be using. So same applies, pretty standard stuff. SRM VM network. Now again, these are all the VM networks that are set up on the DR side. Okay. Now placeholder data store. This is kind of important. So basically, this is going to be a data store that is going to keep the stub or the placeholder VMs, whatever you want to call them, on the DR side. Once this is up and running, I'll give you a look at what they actually look like on the DR side. But a VMFS volume, location will be required on the DR side to keep these stub or placeholder VMs. They're very small in size. They're empty VMs essentially. It's just a VMX file and maybe a couple other log files, so a couple of kilobytes. But it is a requirement that it has to be a VMFS data store on the DR side somewhere. So in this example, I just set up a LUN called SRM placeholder LUN to keep it simple. Happy days. Right. So that's all our resource mapping set up. Okay. So now the next step is to add, this is where the SRAs come into play, the array managers. Okay. So we have our two sites. Okay. So we have Athena and Pandora. So what I'm going to do is add in an SRA for each site. So let's go ahead and do that. Array manager, and we're going to call this Athena. Prod. And listed here, if I had multiple SRAs listed or installed on this Windows box where SRM is installed, we would see them within this drop-down menu. I only have the VNX SRA installed, So that's why we can only see it from that list. Let's have a quick look at that. So you can see these are my SRAs. Okay. Now, what it's asking for here is the IP addresses of the storage processors. So I'm just going to pop over to my notes and populate that. We're not using NFS, we're using block only. Fingers crossed. At this stage, just trying to connect over IP to the storage processors. Okay, so to get to this point, you also have to ensure that you have a lot of other kind of tools installed as well. Let's look at the EMC stuff again. NaviSec CLI is a requirement for the MirrorView SRA to work. You've got to ensure that that's installed. Another thing you want to check as well is that the path is correct. So basically when the Windows box at SRM fires off these Navi commands, that it picks them up. So what I mean basically by the path is just ensure that it's set up here. Where is it? Environmental. Where is it? Yeah, sorry, I've skipped it a couple of times. There it is. So your NaviSec CLI path installation has to be listed inside there somewhere. Otherwise, the Navi commands won't be interpreted by the SRA. Okay, so just make sure that's in there. So cancel out of that. Okay. So once you get as far as here, you can obviously ensure that the SRA is working on this side. Now we've got to do both for both sides. So we're going to add an SRA for the Pandora DR side. So same setup. Pandora DR. And let's pop over to my notes again and get the credentials. Six. Okay. So that's what we'd like to see, little green ticks. Now, so let's go back and review and have a look at the SRAs. Let's give you some information on it there. Array pairs, not set up yet. Devices, nothing listed there. Now, this is the important part, okay? So if your MirrorView isn't working, you're not going to get this far, okay? So if it is set up appropriately and stuff is zoned and you got through the mirror wizard and it's replicating your LUN, then you obviously should see these two fields populated here, the NAA 500s. Okay, so the next thing we want to do now is obviously enable the array pairs. It is at this stage that the ESX host will scan the HBAs and have a look for replicated devices or replicated LUNs. You see it there, discover replicated devices. Additionally, at a later stage, if you're adding in new mirrors, this would be one way to pick them up. A refresh should also do it, I assume. Now, so there we go. Our array pair is enabled, and we'll just check it for the DR side, and it's also listed there as well. So that's what we want to see. On this tab here, we'll just get information on the source and DR side, but most importantly down here, we will see our LUNs that are being replicated between the two sites. Okay, these are all the LUNs that we saw within Unisphere earlier on that are being mirrored. Okay, so we can ignore these guys up here. It's these ones down here that are set up for mirroring. All right, so let's have a look at those. You can see all the names of the data stores there. And the device themselves. We'll have a quick look within Unisphere. You can see these are the guys that I set up for my tests. Okay, and well, you can ignore that one. These are the ones that we should see being replicated within SRM. And there they are. Happy days. Okay, so next thing we got to do, we can skip through vSphere replication. That's VMware's native replication technology, which we won't be using here. So next thing we want to set up is the protection group. Okay, so the protection group basically is just the bunch of VMs that you want to be protected, replicated to the other side in the event of a disaster. Okay, so again, you will not be able to get to this stage unless your arrays are paired. So you really want to make sure that that this part is working before you proceed. Because if this doesn't work, nothing's going to work. Okay. So protection groups. So let's create one. So you can see there, we select the appropriate site, and then we can see down here that it's picking up our array pair. And then these are the devices that are being replicated. Okay. Might select both. Okay, so we got two data store groups. Okay, so this one here are the two VMs that we saw earlier, within the storage pool, or sorry, the resource pool that I set up. Okay, just to give you a bit of background on those VMs, they're the standard Windows 2008 VMs, and I also added one raw device mapping of 2 gigs to each virtual machine. One is being replicated with MirrorView A, one is being replicated with MirrorView S, just as a test, just to ensure that that they both work. So I think for now we'll just stick to that guy there. All right, and we'll just call that test 7. Okay. Now creating the protection group. Okay, there are virtual machines. Everything is okay. You can see all the resource mappings there as well. Okay, now so we have a protection group set up. The next thing we need to do now is our recovery plan. Okay, so basically we are going to select the DR side here, which is the site that we want the VMs to come up on, in the event of a disaster. Select our protection group and select the network that we want the VMs to use, which is the SRM VM network. Now we'll just call that plan 7 as an example. And that's it. And it's now created our recovery plan. Okay. So we got our VMs in there, our protection group. So at this stage, we have everything set up and we are ready to do a test failover.